Good morning and welcome, everyone. Welcome to SSUC, to Southminster Steinhauer United Church, where we're all spiritual seekers united in community. What unites us all is a desire to create community where we all belong, where whether we've been here once or been here countless times, we feel like this is a place we can be ourselves, we can belong, where we can question and ponder as we seek meaningful lives in all that we do. So welcome to each of you here. Welcome to all of us in this room, and as SSUC Edmonton, welcome to all of you who join us online, and especially to SSUC Saskatoon, who joins us at St. Andrew's College this morning in Saskatoon. Welcome to you all. And as has become our custom around here, we're going to turn around to the camera on the back wall and just give a little wave to our friends in Saskatoon. Good morning, everyone. Today marks the beginning of a new reflection and gathering series for us, ABCs of Deeper Living. Today, you're lucky to be in on the ground floor. Today is the letter A. Awaken. Do you have your coffee? Because that'll be step one. As we awaken this morning, we also realize we've set ourselves a 26-week course on this series. So you might be in it for the long haul until well into the new year. We can take this time to awaken to many things. We awaken to the time before us, to the people around us. We also can recognize that we are awakening to this little piece that we do at the beginning of every gathering, this important recognition of the land on which we meet. That we're awakening to the longer history of our land, before colonization, before European colonization, the significance of Indigenous peoples who live and continue to thrive, continue to call this home, whose practices and spiritualities are tied to this land. And as we awaken to those realities, we also recognize the richness that we gain in the continued relationships and reconciliation that we participate in as a community. So, welcome to Treaty 6 territory. We honor this land. A few things that are going on in the life and the work of our community as we get going this morning. I want to
Good morning. On many of the international projects that the Mission and Service Fund offers assistance with, help is offered through an organization called the ACT Alliance. Now, I know I've mentioned this in some of the international projects I've discussed, but I thought maybe I better tell you what the ACT Alliance is. The ACT Alliance is a global coalition of 156 churches and faith-based organizations working together in over 120 countries. These churches include many different types: Anglican, Lutheran, Methodist, Orthodox, Presbyterian, United, and many more. And this proves, even though they may vary in their creeds and beliefs, their belief in working together to offer aid to those who need it is stronger than any division. Aid is offered in countries throughout Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and the Americas as needs arise. ACT workers are active in advocacy, in development, and in humanitarian aid. This includes human rights advocacy, advocacy for environmental justice, and also political advocacy where policies affect developing countries. Humanitarian aid is exemplified in the relief offered recently to the Bahamas following Hurricane Dorian. While the Alliance offers ongoing aid in many countries, emergency relief has recently also included work in Afghanistan and in Indonesia. It's currently helping the Rohingya as they escape from ethnic unrest in Myanmar. And currently, the situation in Syria and the increased incursions by Turkey have become a priority. ACT estimates that 200,000 people have left their homes in recent weeks, and the UN estimates at least 1.6 million people in northeast Syria are in need of humanitarian assistance. The United Church Mission and Service Fund does collect donations earmarked for specific areas, and with such donations, 100% goes to relief work. I mentioned the Rohingya. So far, over 900,000 refugees have arrived in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh can't cope. They're one of the world's poorest countries. So I'd ask you to check out the United Church website for more information and on how to donate to these specific projects. And also, once Halloween is over, we'll be starting to think about Christmas. So stay tuned, because I expect there will be a new catalog for Gifts with Vision coming out. And in the meantime, you can check their website at giftswithvision.ca. Gifts with Vision does operate within the Mission and Service Fund. Thank you.
As we arise into a new day and gather in this circle with each other, we take this time to strengthen our intentions regarding the ways in which we would choose to live. And so, with one another, in one spirit, but in our many voices, let us speak our intentions with one another. As we awaken to this day, some are stirring to consciousness with hope and gratitude. Others waken fear or sadness. The dawn of this new day brings many realities to light for each of us. We come to awaken together to the joys and sorrow we carry, the rest and restlessness of the night. May we open to one another as we create this circle together and are held by love. May it be so in so many ways. We place this light in our midst as a symbol of our intention to live in ways that seek light, that reflect light, and that honor the light in one another, and indeed in all beings. We light this candle to focus our intentions, to live into the best of our humanness, to turn toward better words, better ways, deeper courage, greater compassion. In this light, we seek to live in the graced light of a new day as fully awake people, awake to kindness and gentleness and integrity.
I thought today that we could talk about a button that you all know on your remote control. There's play and there's stop, but there's one with two lines like this. It's pause. It's pause. Sometimes you're watching a show and you have to just take a break. So you hit pause. It doesn't stop everything, but it just stops it for a little bit. You know, you don't have to find your place again. You know where you are. You just hit pause, and it's a little short break. We don't have stop, play, and pause buttons on our bodies. At least I don't. Maybe you do. But if I had a pause button, I'd be really grateful because I could just take a little break when everything is, busy. When I'm running to soccer or hockey or music lessons, or school, or grandma and grandpa's, or wherever we're going, sometimes it's a lot. So we have to hit pause, and it's really nice to take a break every once in a while. I want to read you a little story called A World of Pause Abilities. Get it? Pause, possibilities. They put the two together. Pause abilities. Well, whatever. Okay. A pausability is taking a pause just for you, to stop and notice what you feel, think, and do. A pause is being in the moment and giving yourself a break. There's no wrong way to pause, so it's hard to make a mistake. Some pauses are silent, while some keep you moving. Pauses should be calming so things can start improving. So come, let's explore a world of pause abilities. I'm having trouble. Take a breath deep from your belly and let it out slow. Relax your muscles until they feel like dough. Have something yummy and healthy to eat. Notice the flavor. Is it salty or sweet? Go outside and take a walk. Listen to silence. Try not to talk. Let the rays of sun warm your body and face. Take time to slow down. There's no reason to race. Draw, paint, color, or just doodle. Make your body limp like a spaghetti noodle. Wear your favorite and most comfortable clothes. Be in the moment and wiggle your toes. Are you wiggling your toes? Be good to your body and to your brain. Take the time to listen to the sound of the rain. Turn off all the things that have a screen. Splash your face with warm water and make it clean. See your reflection and make a huge smile. Smiling makes us feel good, and that lasts a while. Say something nice to yourself about you. You're kind, you're smart, and other things too. Reach your arms to the floor and take a bow. Taking a pause focuses on what's happening now. Stretch up as far as you can reach. Step barefoot in the grass or the sand at the beach. Notice the wind when it blows through your hair. Take a pause on your bed or in a soft chair. Remember a funny story or a silly joke. Visit a furry friend and give them a gentle stroke. Find someone you love and ask for a hug. Wrap yourself in a blanket so you feel comfy and snug. Accept what you're feeling as neither right nor wrong. Taking a pause will make your mind and body strong. Taking a pause does not have to be hard. Taking a pause in your room, at school, on the bus, or in your yard. Taking a pause is easy, you see. Making time to pause and practicing is key. Have you learned how to take a pause? If so, give yourself a round of applause. When dealing with life's difficulties, stop and think about a world of possibilities. I wonder if we can think of all the ways that these people in these books took a pause. They did all those things. They felt the wind. They went outside. They sat in a comfy chair. They did a lot of things. What's your favorite way to take a pause? What's your favorite way to take a break? Go to sleep in your bed. Oh, nice. Does anyone else have a favorite way to take a little break, to take a pause? So many ways. There's so many ways. To just be not worried about other things and just be right there in the moment and have a little break for you. It's an amazing thing to practice all of our lives, to take that pause. So now that we've had a pause on the carpet, this is a good way to take a pause. You can just squeeze something squishy. I like that. It's time for our programs. It's time for Kid Spirit and Preschool and Youth Cafe. No matter...
Restoring our
As we seek wisdom, we hear words from a contemporary poet by the name of Mark Nepo. This is an excerpt from his work called Hearing the Cries of the World. That we go numb along the way is to be expected. Even the bravest among us, who give our lives to care for others, go numb with fatigue, when the heart can take in no more, when we need time to digest all we meet. Overloaded and overwhelmed, we start to pull back from the world so we can internalize what the world keeps giving us. Perhaps the noblest private act is the unheralded effort to return, to open our hearts once they've closed, to open our souls once they've shied away, to soften our minds once they've been hardened by the storms of our day. In the words of this poet, our second reading will be offered by Don Gunther in Saskatoon. It's a reading that comes from the Gospel of Mark, a story passed down to us from the first century, a story we have 3 different versions of among our Gospel writers, a story that invites us into a good question that we might carry with us even in this time.
Good morning. I have a reading for you today from Mark chapter 14. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter and James and John. Distressed and agitated, he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed. When he returned to them, he found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "Simon, are you awake? Could you not stay awake for 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may have what is needed for this time." Again, he went a short distance away from them to pray. When he returned, and once more he again found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to say to him. He came a 3rd time and said to them, "Are you sleeping? Wake up and come with me. We must be going. Betrayal is at hand." In the words of this ancient story,
Once upon a time, more than 2,500 years ago, there was a privileged young man who grew up knowing many comforts. His father had tried to protect him from ever seeing illness or old age or differently abled bodies or poverty or death. This father had hoped to shield his son from suffering by keeping him from seeing things as they really are. As the story goes, in time, this young man, Siddhartha, left the comforts of his protected childhood, and he saw all the things that his father tried to keep him from. In his despair over inequity and suffering in life, this young man left his family, renounced all his possessions and his privilege, joined an austere community in his efforts to try to find meaning and purpose in life. In time, he grew disillusioned, thinking there must be some kind of middle way, some way between austerity and indulgence. So he sat down under a tree to meditate for a long time. And when the time came for him to rise from under the tree, his closest fellow seekers noticed that his appearance had changed. There was a kind of radiance about him. It was as though he were lit from within. And as the story goes, a monk approached him and, amazed by his luminosity, said to him, "O Holy One, what are you? You must be a god." And the Buddha, not thinking of himself as anything but present, answered, "No, I'm not a god." And he kept walking. And the monk persisted. "Then you must be a diva." And the Buddha stopped and said, "No, I'm not a diva." And he kept walking. And still the monk pursued him, and he said, "Then you must be Brahman himself." And the Buddha said, "No, I am not." Confused, the monk pressed him again. And he said, "Then what are you? Tell me, please, what are you?" And the Buddha answered, "I am awake. I am awake." Even though we do it at least once every day, it isn't easy to awaken. And although there's no evidence of it in this room, it isn't always easy to stay awake either. In the stories our tradition gives us of another spiritual teacher born some 500 years later than the Buddha, we have this haunting story of Jesus of Nazareth. The story that Dawn read for us. A story of Jesus with his nearest and dearest. And among the very final words the story gives him to speak to his closest friends, Jesus poses this heartbreaking question. In the dark of the night, in the darkest time of his life, in the dark garden in which he has sought the wisdom of ancient trees, this one who is about to be captured and killed by the empire he dared to challenge says to his friends, "Can you not stay awake with me? Can you not stay awake to what is true? Can you not stay awake to seeing who it is that benefits and who pays? Can you not stay awake to the way things are, to what's happening to us and around us? Can you not stay awake to the dream we've been exploring these years together of what could yet be possible? It's a life question, really. A question that transcends this garden and this story and this time and this place. Is it not really a question for every spiritual being in a human experience? Can we awaken and can we stay awake? And much like the time in which these three friends of Jesus found themselves living, we find ourselves living in a time in which it is very hard to stay awake. An old song early in the liberation movement for women comes to me in these days again and again. Words written in 1974 by Carol Etzler. Words that were written about the oppression of lesbian women in that time, but words that are too true and timely. Words that still speak to the global and personal issues we face every day. This was her song. It was called "Sometimes I Wish." Sometimes I wish my eyes hadn't been opened. Sometimes I wish I could no longer see all of the pain and the hurt and the longing of my sisters and me as we try to be free. Sometimes I wish my eyes hadn't been opened just for an hour. How sweet it would be not to be struggling, not to be striving, but just to be sleeping securely in our slavery. But now that I've seen with my eyes, I can't close them, because deep inside me, somewhere, I'd still know the road that my sisters and I have to travel. My heart would say yes, and my feet would say go. Sometimes I wish my eyes hadn't been opened. But now that they have, I'm determined to see that somehow my sisters and I will one day the free people be we were created to be. It's hard to awake, and it's even harder to unsee and unhear. It's tempting to close our eyes to poverty, to war, to the threat of nuclear disaster, to rude and uncivil exchanges that dominate public life, to corruption and deceit at phenomenal levels, to the death of birds on tailing ponds, the loss of right whales to tanker traffic and fishing nets, to severe storms and climate shifts, to the number of species growing extinct, to the melting of ice caps and the diminishment of our lakes, to racial tension and violence, hunger and homelessness. It's tempting to close our eyes to the displacement of so many who flee their homeland in search of safety and some measure of security. It's hard to keep our eyes open to the terror in which so many in the world live. It's hard to keep our hearts open to more cancer, more disease, more dementia. It's hard to awaken and hard to stay awake to all that is. Like an arm that we lay on, or a leg that we sit on, our hearts can fall asleep too, can become numb, so weighted by the realities of life. And waking brings those pins and needles not just to our limbs, but to our soul. Don't those words of Mark Nepo resonate with our reality fatigue? That we go numb along the way is to be expected. Even the bravest among us who give their lives to care for others go numb with fatigue when the heart can take in no more, when we need time to digest all that we meet. Overloaded and overwhelmed, we start to pull back from the world so we can internalize what the world keeps giving us. Perhaps the noblest private act is the unheralded effort to return, to open our hearts once they've closed, to open our souls once they've shied away, to soften our minds once they've been hardened by the storms of life. And the truth is, none of us can stay awake all the time. None of us can stay awake permanently. We're creatures that rehearse our death every day by sleeping, escaping the realities of conscious life and waking and rising to awareness again and again, day after day. We know we can't survive as healthy beings without sleep. And we can't survive the pain of the world in the hypervigilance of being immersed in its raw reality. Nor can we truly stay present to the utter beauty and magnificence of what it is to be alive in the world either. That's why we need possibility. And maybe all of this is why we need spiritual community. Couldn't those three friends have found a better way to stay awake? Because what if being spiritual community is about taking turns, about sharing the vigil, supporting one another as we take our turn to stay with what is, to keep one another from refusing to let go of what could be, of sharing the responsibility in a sustainable way so that some are always awake and some are resting for their time to be awake. Like divers who always dive in pairs. Because diving into the deep always comes with danger. Surely one of the strategies to diminish that danger is to take turns so that someone is always watching the time and the line while someone is probing the deep. And as that one returns to the surface, the other takes to the deep. Sharing the watch, alternating the work with one another of waking one another, balancing our resources for vigilance. It takes community, and it takes generations of community. And we take our place in circles like this to awaken one another, to share the work of staying with and staying awake, to ensure that someone is always watching, someone is witnessing, someone is requiring accountability, someone is holding the vision, and taking turns with the vision we inherit, the values we hold dear, the beloved community we perpetuate all these centuries. Collectively, it's our best hope for remaining inoculated against apathy and ignorance and indifference, that we will inspire and relieve one another in the work of healing the world. The political machinery of every empire counts on citizens staying asleep, not stirring awake. Tomorrow is one of those opportunities to stay awake. to exercise a responsibility and a privilege many have died for. This ancient story comes to us that we might stay awake together, to inoculate ourselves against ignorance and indifference and going numb, to keep us from all falling asleep, to find a way together for collective wakefulness, to shift and share the responsibility, to keep us from the numbness that corruption and cruelty and violence and injustice requires. So as we consider the ABCs of living deeply, of being worthy of our breath, let us take this time to pause, to consider in our minds and in our hearts how we can keep one another awake, and what might be the acts that we can do collectively as those who are fully awake.
As we go into this week of all the work that we have to do, work as citizens, work as spiritual people, work as friends, as family, as humans, we go with the promise to keep each other awake, to be with each other when it matters, and to do so with eyes and hearts open to possibilities.